Yeah, Scott. So how did that come about?
I believe.
Yeah.
So it's a good question. It was a long and winding road. It was, but a good one. I mean, we were approached. Geez, I guess it goes back to the Junos of 2009. So last year's Junos, I had known the songwriter Stefan Macchio, who wrote this song called "I Believe," and he wrote it with Alan Frew, who we all know from Glass Tiger. He's a great guy, and they both are. But we had met Stefan, and as I said, I'd known him before when I worked at Universal. And I think it was Randy Lennox, the chairman of Universal, that had introduced Nikki and her parents to Stefan, just as a great guy and as a great songwriter. And so that was it, and that was at the Junos. And then Nikki performed at the Junos that year on the gala night, on the Saturday night, and it went really well. And fast forward a few months, and I was talking to Stefan about maybe doing some songwriting with Nikki, because for her album, which is coming up in a few months, on April 20th it's coming out, we did some original songwriting with Nikki and with Ron Sexsmith and with Jesse Harris, who wrote "Don't Know Why" for Nora, and we were writing with Randy Bachman. And so I thought, well, let's try Stefan Macchio, because he's certainly a different kind of writer than those other writers I mentioned. And so I called him up, and we happened to be in Toronto doing some stuff and with Nikki, and so we went to his studio. He's got a great studio downtown in Toronto, and you know, as you know, Stefan Macchio, he's done very well. He wrote for Celine Dion, Josh Groban, Sarah Brightman, so he's made some money doing that, and he's got a nice studio. So we went down to the studio, we did some songwriting, and after he heard Nikki, heard her voice when they were singing some of the stuff they were writing, he said, "Hold on a second, I got something I want to bring out." And little did we know at the time that he was bringing out the Olympic theme, and because it was all hush hush and everything was on NDA, you know, he couldn't say anything. So he just introduced the song to us, and he played it for us with some backing tracks, and it was beautiful. And the lyrics were incredible, of course, and inspiring, and could attach themselves to many different things. But he then told us what it was. He told us it was that CTV had approached him. Stefan had wrote the E-Talk theme, and so he's already working with CTV, and they asked him to write this song. And it was his dream to write this song. He was at the Olympics in Calgary in '88 and heard David Foster's song, and had always, I'm speaking for him here, but he's told me this, that he had always wanted to, his dream was to write another Olympic theme. And so he was hired to write the theme, and then once he heard Nikki sing it, he gave her the lyrics. Alan wasn't there, it was just us with Stefan at the time. Alan wrote the lyrics, Stefan wrote the music. The lyrics are beautiful. The song is beautiful. She sang. She's got a pretty photographic memory. She's really, really quick to pick things up, and so she sang the melody and the lyric for him right there with him playing piano, and he flipped out. So next thing you know, he had Alan come and hear her in London, Ontario. We had a concert there last summer. So Alan came to the show. Alan freaked out after you heard her, and then from there we had the support of the songwriters. So we thought that was it, but of course that's never it. When it comes to something as big as the Olympics, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and there's a whole lot of people that were involved. And
would the people at the station
yeah.
come and say, "No, we would have won a Celine Dion"?
Exactly.
Is that the battle?
Yeah, well, that's the battle. I mean, I think I can be honest about it, that for sure, I don't think they'd even feel bad if this was public. That, of course, they're a brand company. They're a huge company. They're one of the biggest media companies in the world, and you know, CTV is more than CTV. It's Bell, Global Media. It's, you know, that's a huge corporation run by a very smart guy who Yvonne Fixon, who you know, I think wanted a brand artist for sure to match with the brand of the Olympics being as high profile as it is. So they had asked Celine, and they had asked a number of artists, Alanis, Nelly Furtado for sure. I believe Avril Lavigne was asked. All the girls, you know, Shania. And for various reasons, they couldn't do them. And it was never about the song. I think the song's brilliant, and everybody recognized that. But the girls, the ladies that were asked for various reasons, couldn't be involved. And so it came down to a couple of singers, Nikki and Annie Villeneuve, who's a fantastic singer from Quebec, who won the Canadian Idol, the equivalent out there.
And they're the ones that she did the duet with her at the
closing
ceremonies.
That's right. And Annie had the rights to the French version of the song, which did really well in Quebec, and was a radio single out there. And it was on the EP, which we released along with Nikki, and with the instrumental version that Stefan recorded with the MSO. So we had these 3 different versions, and but Nikki's, of course, being English and being that the Olympics were in Vancouver, was obviously going to be the front runner. And but you know, it took us recording it, and then we brought in a famous arranger, and we went to MGM Sound in Culver Studios in California, and recorded with a full symphony orchestra, like a film orchestra, like a film score orchestra, which is very different. The orchestral arrangements and the sound of a score of a film orchestra, you know, studio orchestra, as opposed to, you know, if you get Patrick Williams or if you get Jeremy Lubbock and you get those guys to bring in a Capitol Studios orchestra, it was very different and much more like very emotional and very.
It's the big sweeping.
It's the big
sound.
Sweeping sound. Yeah, and I'd never really had experience hearing a singer with that aside from watching movies, so it was something else, and it came down to the wire. Like we didn't have the recording for that until January 3rd, and the Olympics were started in 5 or 6 weeks. So once we didn't have their approval until they finally heard it, and they had to hear the whole package, I think, before CTV really got it, and they really got, okay, youth, you know, a girl from Quebec who's Anglophone, so it has both sides of the French equation, the English equation. She's new, so it gives CTV the brand of having discovered her, even though perhaps she was somewhat well known in Canada prior to that. It was mostly in the jazz and the older demographic community, right, for sure. And by their notarization, if you will, of Nikki, it took her from being an artist who had a couple Juno nominations, had sold 40,000 records in Canada, which was fine, to a household name, pretty much overnight.
Really quick.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, it's been a month since the Olympics or started, and since then we've sold 160,000 copies of I Believe. So that's 4 times platinum.
Now, is that the download thing?
It's both. We were able to get Korea.
Is there a hard copy of it?
Yeah, there's an EP.
Okay.
And then there's a digital download. Now, 120,000 were the digital download.
Right.
And 40,000 were the physical song. And then Korea were allowed, because it's the same song, for the 2 to be bundled in the numbers. And so the numbers work out to 160, which is 4 times platinum. And she was 15 when she recorded it. And the youngest artist prior to Nikki to go 4 times platinum is Avril Lavigne, and Avril was 18. So by 2 years, we're the youngest. Nikki's the youngest Canadian artist ever. So we broke a lot of rules. You know, it was the fastest song to get to #1 in history in Canada. It was the biggest selling digital song of the year in Canada, and one of the 10 biggest selling digital songs of all time in Canada. I mean, digital only is only about 7 years old, so that won't last forever. But that's the kinds of firsts that were created with this support. So
now, did you at any point worry about the fact that she may be getting overexposed?
Absolutely.
Did that go? Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Okay.
It wasn't a worry, not for me. I can't speak for Nikki or for her family or the rest of the team at A440 at our company, but I think they all kind of feel what I feel, which is that when we were in the midst of preparing for this, and we knew that we were doing the opening ceremonies and the closing ceremonies, and I Believe, but we were under non-disclosure agreements because of the way the Olympics work. You can't tell anybody. So we had to keep all of this under wraps. So we knew that we had all of these things kind of coalescing together, you know, if you will. Like we had 2 major performances worldwide, plus in the middle of this sandwich of the Olympics, we had I Believe, which in Canada we knew had a $25 million media campaign attached to it from CTV